Hey, Joanne, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm going to read you, for starters, just a little paragraph on the back of my book. Small in stature, large in presence, and always in charge, Joanne Greene anchored the news and hosted talk shows on San Francisco radio while totally devoted to her family until a traumatic accident suddenly removed her ability to control anything. By Accident is a story of resilience and perseverance, of will and pluck, and of positivity and gratitude for lessons learned, even as the personal hits just keep on coming. So that is the very short version. I'm a veteran broadcaster in the San Francisco Bay Area, mother of two, grandmother of two, now a podcaster, and this is my first and I suspect only book.
Love that. I would love if you could tell us what your book's about.
Absolutely. Um, it begins with me being hit by a car as a pedestrian. I was leaving work. It was 2012. I was heading home to see the debate between then candidate Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. And a car stopped for me. And just as I got in front of her, mind you, in a crosswalk, broad daylight, a truck came at 50 miles an hour from behind her, slammed into her. She slammed into me. I was thrown up onto the hood of the car. She was catapulted 50 feet down the street. And at some point, I fell off the hood onto the ground. I knew that I was alive. I was conscious, but in shock. And I later learned that I had 4 pelvic fractures and the whole right side of my body was crushed. Why this is interesting is that it took being hit by a car for me to learn what it meant to slow down, to really have gratitude, to relinquish control or the illusion of control, because a lot of times we think we're in control when we're not, but I felt safer when I thought I was in control. I learned how to move through some of life's toughest challenges, not only the accident, which took a year and a half of recovery, but as the book goes on, it follows me for the next couple of years when a couple of other really big challenges occur. And prior to being hit by a car, I had lost 3 family members in a 4-year period. So it really deals with resilience, it deals with loss, it deals with what it means to build and strengthen a primary relationship. It's a lot about my relationships with my sons, my friends, my community, the role that community can play in one's life. And I'm told it's a page turner, but also you walk away with some really universal lessons about tools that you can implement and use. We're all going to face loss. We're all going to face illness, if not our own, that of someone we love. Injury, failure, relationships will end, jobs will end. We need to know how to move through those junctures in life. And in fact, there are things that make it easier. And I practiced them during my recovery and then after my recovery when these other challenges happened. And I'm still practicing them now. I lost my wallet a couple days ago. And that's the kind of thing that would have made me really upset, my old self. I would have been worrying about my identity theft. I would have been thinking about how am I going to replace all these things? How am I going to know about that? And I just sailed through it. And I now have an appointment to get my new license. The new credit cards are all lined up. It's just something has shifted in me. So I thought I would share it with the world or as many people as might read my book.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
I've always been a writer, but I've been a writer for hire, in effect. So I was a broadcaster, and most of what you hear on, for instance, the radio or television, I did both, has to be written first. Writing for those media is very different than writing a memoir. So I needed to go right back to ground zero and really learn the craft of writing memoir. And it was very humbling. I thought I was a writer, and I was, but not this kind of a writer. And so I took classes, and I had writing coach, and I ultimately had an editor who made my book much better. I did the rewriting, but she told me what could improve it. And initially, I thought I was writing it just for family and friends. And then the more I got into making it better and really getting in there and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting, the more I realized that I was proud enough of this that I would try to get it published.
Love that. When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book was for?
Women who do too much, women who are high achievers, but who demand something close to perfection from themselves, women who feel they need to be the best employee and mother and volunteer and daughter and sister and spouse and entertain, and the house has to look good and all of it, which I think is sadly a lot of us. Um, it isn't just for women by any means, but I find that my primary audience members, people who are seeing themselves in my narrative, are women of all ages, really. Um, Young women, middle-aged, and older. And then also people who have had losses, people, which is again almost everybody, but you get to a certain age, you've experienced losses. People who've faced challenging diagnoses or big injuries that they then had to figure out how to manage their life for a period of time. So all of those folks, and it really is a subset of everyone. I got a voicemail message today from a guy who was my boss in 1977 telling me that he had read the book and he thought he knew me, but he didn't know me. Now he knows me. It was amazing. He couldn't put it down. So it's all kinds of people.
Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
How long have I been writing this book, this story, or writing in general?
In general.
Always. I was a writer as a kid. I've kept all my journals from 8th grade until now. You can imagine the stories that are captured. Um, I in college I studied communications, but plenty of writing. I've written a film script. I've written all kinds of things. So the writing has just been how I express myself personally. And I'm a word nerd. I'm really into words. I never knew whether I would write a book or not, but I thought maybe at some point in the future, when I wasn't working full time and juggling all the demands of raising a family and helping to take care of an aging mother and a sister who had ovarian cancer, when this particular 10-year period happened in my life, and I was learning so much that I felt it was really like, one way I can describe it to you, Courtney, is it was post-traumatic growth. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress, and some of that's inevitable when you've been through a trauma. But I see that the big, big challenges in life also as opportunities. And if you view it that way, you can use it as a springboard. This doesn't say, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that there weren't many tears. I'm not saying that I didn't feel sorry for myself a lot of the time. I did, and have all kinds of emotions and flashbacks of the accident. It was very traumatic. But in the end, I had a lot of time on my hands for the first time in my life. I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. And so I decided to use that time to become what to me felt like a better person.
Love that. What was your schedule like when you were writing your book?
I was not someone who wrote at the same time in the same place every day. That's just not who I am. And I have to say, I made a lot more progress once the pandemic started, because then I was stuck in my house for a period of time. And not just because of the virus, but I live in Northern California and there were wildfires that first year. And so the smoke outside was unbreathable. So we couldn't go out. Even, the one thing you could do during the pandemic, which was go for a walk or a hike, couldn't do that either. So I got a whole lot done. I'm fresher in the morning. I write more in the morning. I have this room in my home that I call my study, because I think it just makes it sound like it's what I want to do rather than an office, which sounds like what I have to do. And I write here, but sometimes I write in other places. Um, I was in writing groups. I had a writing partner. I did all kinds of things to get feedback, because it's so often when we write, it seems good until someone else gives you feedback and says, this doesn't really hold together here. Why is this happening? I really need to understand a lot more about this. And also, as a journalist, my tendency was to write about what happened. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and not talk about how I felt about it, because in journalism, that's not relevant. In a memoir, that's 100% relevant. So what I learned is that the trick is to have themes, and everything has to support at least one of your themes, and that there have to be places for the reader to see herself or himself in your story. So that's what I worked on. And you're right, you have to write in scene as opposed to telling what happened. You create the scene, you bring the reader right into it. Writing dialogue wasn't a problem for me because I'd been in radio for so long. I tend to hear things, but creating scenes and having you feel like you are there was something I needed to learn, and I guess I did.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
I write in spurts, um, and then I need a break, and then I need to walk around. Often I have something to nibble on over here, and I have a drink over here, and sometimes I'll light a candle. Um, I frequently take breaks from what I'm working on, so I'm a multitasker, sort of a hopeless multitasker. So I might check my social media or read my emails at some point. Go snuggle with the dog that you see right behind me, napping on the couch, things like that.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
Well, if it's the morning, it's coffee for sure. Later in the day, it's sparkling water. Um, I just finished some sesame sticks. That is not an atypical snack for me. Or nuts or fruit. I might cut up an apple or a bowl of blueberries. Not sugar. I save that for late at night.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I enjoy reading books that are really well written. Some of my favorites from the last few weeks are Hello, Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. Just finished it yesterday. Beautiful book. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Incredible. I mostly read on Kindle, so I would have to go grab my Kindle to describe what all the books are. But I go back and forth between reading, what's new and getting a lot of hype right now, to things that I'm always meant to read and didn't. I'm also published by She Writes Press, which is a feminist press based in Berkeley, California. And they publish 50 books in the spring and 50 books in the fall. And one of the beautiful things about this organization is you're part of a cohort. And so the women writers support one another. So I've been reading a lot of other She Writes Press books, which are in some cases fiction, in some cases nonfiction, can be memoir, but not necessarily. a real wide range. So I've been reading a lot of my fellow authors' books.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
As a child, I devoured the Nancy Drew mysteries and what we always called the orange biographies, because these were hardback, small books that were biographies of just all different people. And there were very few of women, duh. And of course, I read them all. Clara Barton, Helen Keller, Um, and I just would get lost in the stories. One of my writing heroes has actually wrote a blurb that is on the front cover of my book. It's Anne Lamott. Are you familiar with Anne Lamott? You must. I highly recommend. She's written, I mean, she just keeps churning out the books, but one of her books is about writing, and it's called Bird by Bird. And I highly recommend that for anyone who's a writer or aspiring to be a writer. She's quite inspirational to me. There are just so many, but really, I would have to say more women writers over the years.
Love that. You touched on this, but what books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Charlotte's Web as a child. And I still have my copy. And I'm going to give it to my granddaughter, but I think I'm going to read it to her first, a chapter at a time. It just touched my heart as a child, and I suspect it'll touch hers. And it definitely made me never afraid of spiders.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Anne Patchett for sure is one. Barbara Kingsolver is another. Danny Shapiro, Letty Cotton Pogrebin. I feel like I'm having a moment where I'm just blanking because I'm sure if I opened my Kindle, I would go, oh, and this person and this person, because they're all there. I'm sort of glancing. I have bookshelves all. I have to show you my original Charlotte's Web. Is that the sweetest?
Wow.
Someone must have given it to me as a present because the price is cut out.
Oh, love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
If you start reading a book and it is not grabbing your attention, put it down. If you're not reading it for an assignment for school, reading for pleasure should be exactly that, pleasure. And do not judge. If you want to read a page turner that's considered like a romance novel or a beach read, do it. It's the act of being caught up in a story. And, I've gotten to the point now where I can't read anything that isn't decently written. It has to be well written. And I also can get bored if there's a level of detail that's just too much. I have a fairly short attention span, so books have to grab me. But when they do, I don't want to do anything else. I just want to read and zip through it. So, yeah, my advice would be read what you want to read. Don't read titles that you think are going to impress somebody else.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Be patient. It takes a lot, and expect to throw out a lot of what you've written and a lot of what you've rewritten 12 times, and still perhaps you may have to junk it. It's called killing your darlings, and for good reason, because we become very attached to our stories. But many of my stories that I thought were going to be in this book are not, because they didn't support the themes. So, first of all, I would say just get started, start anywhere. It doesn't have to be at the beginning. Just write and then write and then write some more. And I would say find someone else who's writing so that you can encourage one another, so that you can read what each other has written and provide feedback. And that's really a helpful way to get on a schedule. I was in a 6-month How to Write Your Memoir in 6 months. Mind you, that was 6 months of the 5 years that I worked on this book. But during that 6 months, I had to produce 30 pages every 2 weeks. And that was super helpful.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
My age. What would you guess? I'm going to make you guess. I'm going to turn the tables. How old do you think I am?
40s.
She's looking at me, people. Sweetheart, I'm turning 70 in February.
Wow.
For real.
Never would have guessed it.
It's true. I feel great, but I'm also a cancer survivor, a person who was hit by a car as a pedestrian and broke her pelvis in 4 places. I've had multiple surgeries, and I'm healthier now than I've ever been in my life. So that's the other message I have for you and for all of your listeners is it's never too late to get better habits. It's never too late to clean up your act. It's never too late to get on an exercise schedule or eat better foods for you, for your body. I never could meditate, but I sure learned how to meditate after the accident. And now it's a regular practice and part of my life. So, yeah, today's the first day of the rest of your life. Never too late.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I would just love for people to check my book out and also my podcast. I have a couple different podcasts, but the one I'm talking about right now and that I'm really anxious for people to subscribe to and follow is called In This Story with Joanne Greene. So many of us have a really short attention span these days. And this podcast are very, very short. They're my micro essays set to music, and they're about all different topics, but they're all real. They're memoir style, and they're under 5 minutes in length. I think one of them is over 5 minutes, but generally 4 minutes ish. And it's called In This Story with Joanne Greene, and it's available on all the podcast platforms. And my book is By Accident, a Memoir of Letting Go. And it is available as an audiobook on Audible and Apple and all the places where one gets an audiobook. It's in paperback on Amazon and orderable at any bookstore. And it is also an ebook. So for those of you like me who like to read on a Kindle, it's available there as well.
Love that. That covers most of our next question, but I'll still go through it in case there's anything you want to add. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
There are signed copies at bookstores near me, which is in Northern California. But if someone really wants a signed copy, they should just reach out to me and we'll figure something out ourselves. And they can do that through my website, which is www.joanne, which is JOANNE hyphen Greene, GREENE.com. And on the website, they can learn more about the book, about the podcasts, see videos, all kinds of things are on there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney.